Hello, I'm Paul McKelly, Town Manager for the Town of Merrimack, with Lauren Martin of our Assessing Department. Tax bills are out. We've finished our revaluation. People have seen what they owe. With the tax bills, one thing to remember is that you have to take your first, you get your total tax for the year, and then you subtract out your first payment for June and July, and that leaves your balance. That balance, if it's more than the first half of the year, is not then going to be doubled next year. So what you would need to do is you'd have to add your first and second tax bills together for July and December, and then divide that by 2, and that would be your payment that's due in the June time frame, because it's 1/2 of your tax liability for the year. So, with that being said, we did the revaluation. We saw about a 37% increase across the board in values. Now that I got my tax bill, what happens if I think my value is too high, Lauren? What are my options?
At this point, if your value is higher than market value on April 1st of 2021, you would have the opportunity to file for an abatement at the local level. The forms are available at the town hall at the assessing department. They're available online on the assessing page of the town's website. And they're also available on the state of New Hampshire Department of Revenue and Board of Tax and Land Appeals websites as well. So multiple avenues to get it. You can get it in another town. If you happen to be near that, you can get one there as well.
So it's a standard form?
It's a standard state form used everywhere in New Hampshire.
Great.
So if you are aggrieved with that assessment, not the taxes, but the assessment, you would file that form. You would provide evidence of why you believe your value is not market value. And that burden's generally met by reviewing sales properties. Those are available for review on the website. You can still do comparable sales search on there. So if you went to your property and then over to the left, there's a search button where you would normally search by parcel ID, owner, location. You have the opportunity to search by sales, and it'll find properties that are most comparable to yours in size, land size, home size, bedroom count, things like that. They won't be perfect. No two homes are exactly alike, but it'll give you a general understanding if your assessment is reasonable or not. So if you, for example, were assessed at $400,000 and you look at the sales and all the sales were coming in showing they were assessed or that they sold for around $300,000, then that might be some good evidence to show that you're overassessed. So that information is all available. Also, the staff in the assessing department are there daily to help assist if there's any computer issues. Not everybody is technologically savvy, so we do have assistants there to help with that as well.
Okay. So I can't come in and just say, my taxes are too high. I have to have some kind of proof?
You can say your taxes are too high, but you're not probably going to be too successful there. At this point, the burden's on the taxpayer to provide evidence to support the market value of their property. So right in the abatement application, in the directions within the document, it says statements like, my taxes are too high, are not going to generally help you meet your burden. Okay. Those abatement applications, so once you've received your tax bill, you have the right to file for the abatement, and you have till March 1st. That is a statutory deadline. If it happens, and I didn't look at the calendar before we're speaking, so if March 1st happens to fall on a Saturday, then you would have till Monday, or if it's on Sunday, you have till the following Monday. And that's either delivered in hand or postmarked by March 1st. And there, if it's postmarked March 2nd, it's returned as untimely filed. That's not a town ordinance or law or rule. That is a state statute that we have to follow. That's a drop dead date. So that opportunity for that abatement is right through till March 1st.
So I have from now until March 1st to get my information together. Now, should I be looking at sales in Merrimack, sales in surrounding communities? How could I prove my case that my assessment is maybe too high?
We would rely only on sales in Merrimack. We as a contract assessor, we do assessing in other communities, and there's many small communities that don't have a lot of sales transactions. That is not the case in Merrimack. We just completed the equalization process, and we had well over 600 sales in the past year here. Most neighborhoods will see multiple sales on a road or a neighborhood, so there's sufficient information right here in Merrimack, particularly with the residential properties. So we wouldn't look outside for most residential properties. A taxpayer who has a commercial property, that's more limited in nature, they may have to look outside the Merrimack boundaries to find comparables. Not to mention anybody specifically, but if a brewery were to look at their assessment and want to compare it, obviously we don't have more than one. So they would have to expand their search.
So they would have to look outside in the state of New Hampshire.
That's where we would start,
Okay.
and depending on the type of property. I mean, that's specifically like that property that I just referenced, a brewery, of that scale, that might have to be a nationwide search. But that's relatively rare. That's 95% of the properties, maybe 99% of the properties in town, you're going to have sufficient data right in the town boundaries.
Okay. So I go through the process. I file my abatement with the assessing department. Now it's March 15th. Do I get some kind of letter? What am I expected?
So the sooner an abatement comes in, the sooner it gets answered. So if you were to file an abatement today, that's something we're going to be periodically reviewing. Every time I'm in the office, we review those. We make those recommendations, and the town council is the one to finally accept or deny the application. At that point, we would send a copy of that executed agreement, that disposition, with a letter indicating what their points were and what we found and what our recommendation was. So they get that in writing. At that point, if a taxpayer was either granted or denied an abatement application at the local level, if they get that information and they're still not happy, even if they received an abatement and they're still not happy with that final value after the abatement, they still have a further right beyond that of appeal. So after you get noticed of that decision, or before, and I'm trying to think of my deadline, so by July 1st, I believe it is, we're supposed to notify them. So if you receive a notice in March, though, and you're still not happy with it, you have till September 1st to file a further appeal, and then that would go to either the New Hampshire Superior Court or the Board of Tax and Land Appeals in Concord.
Okay.
So the local level is the first step, and then those statutory, there's
There's
additional levels of appeal beyond that.
All right. So what happens if, say, my assessment says I got 5 bedrooms, but really I only have 4? Do I have to file an abatement, or can I come down to the assessing office and ask to speak to you or a representative to say, hey, you got me down for 5 bedrooms, I have 4? What would be the process for that?
Well, the process now is that abatement. That's the only way to change anything legally for tax year 2021 is through the abatement process.
Okay.
So you'd file the abatement, we would schedule an appointment, we'd come out, do an inspection, and we'd correct the data on the record, and whatever that resulting value as a result of that inspection, we would abate.
Oh, great.
If it's past March 1st, and now you've just had an opportunity after the holidays, now all the craziness, you finally look at your assessment and you see you're assessed for a finished basement, and I don't have a finished basement. Even though the tax year 2021 is done and there's no longer an abatement process, you can come into the office, let us know, and in between those tax bills, we can come out, do an inspection, and we can correct the data for 2022.
Okay.
So you don't have any retroactive
relief,
but you can correct it
correct
before it shows up
Right.
on the next bill, and it alleviates the need for a future abatement.
So that is why it's so important for people to look at the assessment database and what you're being assessed on, to make sure if there are errors that you correct those errors and get those errors corrected.
Absolutely.
With the town. So.
The online data has helped tremendously to ensure accurate data. We also look at third-party sources for a lot of information, MLS listing services used. So if a realtor, for example, inaccurately listed something or just in error listed something when they were selling your home, and we looked at that and we estimated it based on their information, we could list your record card with some wrong information. So that tool is available, and we've had over the years, because we're probably online now almost 20 years with that data, it's helped refine that data and make it more and more accurate every day. It'll never be perfect, but having all those resources out there helps to make it a more reliable source.
Great. So we kind of talked about abatements.
Yep.
It's not the only thing the assessing department does from now until March, April 15th. What about exemptions, such as I'm a veteran? I know you got to bring your DD 214, which is your discharge papers, into the assessing department if you're first time getting that exemption.
Right.
And you have until, you can bring it at any time, but
The deadline is April 15th.
April 15th.
For all exemptions. So taxpayers, it doesn't prevent you or make you wait till April 15th. In fact, if you're a veteran and you qualify, come get your information in now.
Right.
We could review the documentation, let you know whether you qualify or not. We'd send you a notification of that, and then it would automatically go on for your billing in 2022. So even though it's untimely for this year, because that deadline, which also is statutory, is passed, we can take those records in and put those on for 2022. And
So-
that's true for veterans, but not so for elderly.
Okay.
And I say that because we need to wait until you've gotten your year-end income.
Financials.
Right, exactly. So typically, elderly that are already on the program, we send information out for their income and asset statements in January. They don't usually get that information till January. So if you haven't applied for that or you don't qualify for that, but you think you might this year, then in January, that would be a good time to start putting that paperwork together and to come in and apply for it.
And is that all on the assessing website as well?
all
The
on-
limits and the limits of for income and
The income and asset limits, and then what you would qualify for within each age group.
group.
For the elderly. It's
Right.
all posted on the assessing webpage.
and it's also, we do have a disabled one.
Disabled, there's
and-
so many exemptions, it's hard to keep track of
Right.
nowadays.
And I know we have solar, we have veteran, we have disabled, we
Blind.
have elderly, we have blind. So there are a lot. So please visit the assessing website on the town's website, the assessing department's page on the town's website, so that you can get out there and see what the town has to offer and what we offer
Absolutely.
for these. Now, the one question I do have, I would like to follow up on the veteran.
Yep.
Like elderly, it's every year you have to reapply. And
Elderly, because it's based on your income and
come-
assets, that changes every
every
year.
year.
Once a veteran, always a veteran. So if
Okay.
you qualify for the veterans tax credit, you would get it year after year. We do review those annually to make sure, because you need to be a resident of Merrimack to get that on your residential property. So if for some reason your mailing address changed to Arizona and you still have a property here, we'd need to verify where your residence is. Because if your mail is going to Arizona, it's gonna flag us that you may no longer reside here.
And we're
So
not
those
talking
are-
like snowbird mail. We're talking your permanent mail, that all your mail is mailed to Arizona.
Correct, right. So we need to just verify where your permanent residence is. Short of that, once a veteran, always a veteran. So that's not going to go away unless you moved and you no longer reside here.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time today. I hope that
welcome.
cleared up some questions that have been lingering in people's minds with this. And remember, the tax bills are out. You received them. They're due December 30th this year. They're a little later than normal. We had a couple of hiccups with the Department of Revenue. That's who sets the tax rate for the town of Merrimack. It isn't the school. It isn't the town. We feed in the information, but the only one who can set a tax rate in the state of New Hampshire is the Department of Revenue. And they had some backlogs that they were working through, so we try to get the tax bills out as soon as possible. So December 30th, they're due. If you have any questions, you can call my office, the town manager's office, at 603-424-2331, or the assessing department's office. Or go on our webpage. We have a lot of answers to a lot of these questions on our webpage, www.merrimacknh.gov. Thank you for watching.